This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Kristen Hughes. The Amateur Cracksman by E.W. Horning. 9 Points of the Law.
"Well," said Raffles, "what do you make of it?"
I read the advertisement once more before replying. It was in the last column of the Daily Telegraph, and it ran: £2,000 reward. The above sum may be earned by anyone qualified to undertake delicate mission and prepared to run certain risk. Apply by telegram. Security, London. "I think," said I, "it's the most extraordinary advertisement that ever got into print." Raffles smiled.
"Not quite all that, Bunny. Still extraordinary enough, I grant you."
"Look at the figure!"
"It is certainly large."
"And the mission and the risk!"
"Yes, the combination is frank, to say the least of it. But the really original point is requiring applications by telegram to a telegraphic address. There's something in the fellow who thought of that, and something in his game. With one word he chokes off the million who answer an advertisement every day, when they can raise the stamp. My answer cost me 5 bob. But then I prepaid another."
"You don't mean to say that you've applied?"
"Rather," said Raffles. "I want £2,000 as much as any man."
"Put your own name?"
"Well, no, Bunny, I didn't. In point of fact, I smell something interesting and illegal, and you know what a cautious chap I am. I signed myself Glasspool, care of Hickey, 38 Conduit Street. That's my tailor, and after sending the wire I went round and told him what to expect. He promised to send the reply along the moment it came. I shouldn't be surprised if that's it."
And he was gone before a double knock on the outer door had done ringing through the rooms, to return next minute with an open telegram and a face full of news.
"What do you think?" said he. "Security is that fellow Addenbrooke, the police court lawyer, and he wants to see me instanter."
"You know him, then?"
"Merely by repute. I only hope he doesn't know me. He's the chap who got 6 weeks for sailing too close to the wind in the Sutton Wilmer case. Everybody wondered why he wasn't struck off the rolls. Instead of that, he's got a first-rate practice on the seamy side, and every blackguard with half a case takes it straight to Bennett Addenbrooke. He's probably the one man who would have the cheek to put in an advertisement like that, and the one man who could do it without exciting suspicion. It's simply in his line. But you may be sure there's something shady at the bottom of it. The odd thing is that I have long made up my mind to go to Addenbrooke myself if accidents should happen."
"And you're going to him now?"
"This minute,"
said Raffles, brushing his hat.
"And so are you."
"But I came in to drag you out to lunch."
"You shall lunch with me when we've seen this fellow. Come on, Bunny. We'll choose your name on the way. Mine's Glasspool, and don't you forget it."
Mr. Bennett Addenbrooke occupied substantial offices in Wellington Street, Strand, and was out when we arrived, but he had only just gone over the way to the court, and 5 minutes sufficed to produce a brisk, fresh-coloured, resolute-looking man, with a very confident, rather festive air, and black eyes that opened wide at the sight of Raffles.
"Mr. Glasspool?"
exclaimed the lawyer.
"My name,"
said Raffles with dry effrontery.
"Not up at Lord's, however," said the other slyly. "My dear sir, I have seen you take far too many wickets to make any mistake."
For a single moment Raffles looked venomous. Then he shrugged and smiled, and the smile grew into a cynical little chuckle.
"So you have bowled me out in my turn," said he. "Well, I don't think there's anything to explain. I am harder up than I wish to admit under my own name, that's all. And I want that £1,000 reward."
"2,000," said the solicitor. "And the man who is not above an alias happens to be just the sort of man I want. So don't let that worry you, my dear sir. The matter, however, is of a strictly private and confidential character. and he looked very hard at me.
"Quite so," said Raffles. "But there was something about a risk. A certain risk is involved." "Then surely 3 heads will be better than 2. I said I wanted that £1,000. My friend here wants the other. We are both cursedly hard up, and we go into this thing together or not at all. Must you have his name too? I should give him my real one, Bunny."
Mr. Addenbrooke raised his eyebrows over the card I found for him. Then he drummed upon it with his finger-nail, and his embarrassment expressed itself in a puzzled smile. "The fact is, I find myself in a difficulty," he confessed at last. "Yours is the first reply I have received. People who can afford to send long telegrams don't rush to the advertisements in the Daily Telegraph. But on the other hand, I was not quite prepared to hear from men like yourselves. Candidly, and on consideration, I am not sure that you are the stamp of men for me, men who belong to good clubs. I rather intended to appeal to the adventurous classes."
"We are adventurers,"
said Raffles gravely. "But you respect the law." The black eyes gleamed shrewdly.
"We are not professional rogues, if that's what you mean," said Raffles, smiling. "But on our beam ends we are. We would do a good deal for £1,000 apiece, eh, Bunny?"
"Anything," I murmured. The solicitor rapped his desk. "I'll tell you what I want you to do. You can but refuse. It's illegal, but it's a legality in a good cause. That's the risk, and my client is prepared to pay for it. He will pay for the attempt in case of failure. The money is as good as yours once you consent to run the risk. My client is Sir Bernard Debenham, of Brook Hall, Esher." "I know his son," I remarked. Raffles knew him too, but said nothing, and his eye drooped disapproval in my direction. Bennett Addenbrooke turned to me. "Then," said he, "you have the privilege of knowing one of the most complete young blackguards about town, and the fond et origo of the whole trouble. As you know the son, you may know the father too, at all events by reputation, and in that case I needn't tell you that he is a very peculiar man. He lives alone in a storehouse of treasures which no eyes but his ever behold. He is said to have the finest collection of pictures in the south of England, though nobody ever sees them to judge. Pictures, fiddles, and furniture are his hobby, and he is undoubtedly very eccentric. Nor can one deny that there has been considerable eccentricity in his treatment of his son. For years Sir Bernard paid his debts, and the other day, without the slightest warning, not only refused to do so any more, but absolutely stopped the lad's allowance. Well, I'll tell you what has happened, but first of all you must know, or you may remember, that I appeared for young Debenham in a little scrape he got into a year or two ago. I got him off all right, and Sir Bernard paid me handsomely on the nail, and no more did I hear or see of them until one day last week." The lawyer drew his chair nearer ours, and leaned forward with a hand on either knee. "On Tuesday of last week I had a telegram from Sir Bernard. I was to go to him at once. I found him waiting for me in the drive. Without a word he led me to the picture gallery, which was locked and darkened, drew up a blind, and stood simply pointing to an empty picture frame. It was a long time before I could get a word out of him. Then at last he told me that that frame had contained one of the rarest and most valuable pictures in England, in the world, an original Velasquez. "I have checked this," said the lawyer, "and it seems literally true. The picture was a portrait of the Infanta Maria Teresa, said to be one of the artist's greatest works, only second to another portrait of one of the popes in Rome, so they told me at the National Gallery, where they have its history by heart. They say there that the picture is practically priceless, and young Debenham has sold it for £5,000.
"The deuce he has!"
said Raffles. I inquired who had bought it. "A Queensland legislator of the name of Craggs, the Hon. John